Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to CSC's web conference on Pradhan, Mantri, Khanij, Kshetra, Kalyan, Yojana in the context of District Mineral Foundation. Today we are joined by Chandrabhushan, Deputy General Director, Center for Science and Environment. Just a second, he'll be there in a minute.
Hello, everyone. Let me welcome all of you to this webinar on Pradhan Mantri Khanij Kshetra Kalyan Yojana. I'll call it as PM Triple KY. Let's shorten the name. And what I plan to do in say 15-20 minutes is to take you through uh, some of the key provisions of this Yojana, talk about history of District Mineral Foundation, which is an integral part of this Yojana, and as well as what states can do. My focus is going to be on states because there is a huge opportunity for states to improvise on this Yojana, make it much better than what the central government has notified. Central government has notified a broad structure. The states have the opportunity to improve on it, and therefore I'm going to spend some time on the issue on how states can improve Pradhan Mantri Khanij Kshetra Kalyan Yojana. So allow me to welcome all of you again, and I hope uh, most of you are already there. And just one request that you can type your questions. After my presentation, we can spend some time discussing those questions. So as I go along in my presentations, you have all the freedom to type the questions, and I'll be most happy to answer those questions. So let me start by just quoting what the Prime Minister of India said in his August 15, 2015 speech, because he actually gave the vision of this Yojana, and I would just like to read it. It should be in front of your, on your desks, on your screen. And essentially, he said that the life of people in mineral rich areas are not good. These areas are not developed, and therefore there is a need for a special scheme for the development of farmers, laborers, and people of these regions where minerals are extracted. And this was something that the Prime Minister openly said in his 15 August speech. But what Prime Minister said is something that this country has been discussing for a very long time. And I want to take you to 2008 or even before 2008. If you will remember that there was a committee set up by the planning commissions on mining and minerals, which was called as high level committee, headed by Mr. Huda, who was a member of planning commission then in 2006 and 7. And they had come out with a report on the need to reform mining sector in India. In 2008, the Center for Science and Environment, based on the deliberations of the Huda committee as well as our own research, came out with a major publications, and you can have access to these publications from our website, which was on basically on the status of social and environmental status of the mining rich areas and mineral rich areas. And we essentially said that those areas which are rich in minerals are actually very poor environmentally and socially. And we had actually questioned that can mining be possible under the existing laws and institutional structure. In this publication in 2008, we had recommended that one way to bring some sort of social development in mining area would be to share benefits of mineral with the people. And we in this publication had quoted countries like Canada, Australia, Papua New Guinea, where profit sharing, benefit sharing provision existed then in 2008. And we recommended in our publication that India should also come out with some sort of profit sharing and benefit sharing mechanism, which will allow local community and the local institutions to benefit out of mining. If you will remember, between 2000 2008 and 2010, Ministry of Mines started deliberating on coming out with a new law to replace the Mines and Mineral Development and Regulation Bill 1957. For close to 3 years, there were a lot of deliberations. Benefit sharing was prominent part of the change that was proposed by Ministry of Mines then. For example, in 2008, there was proposal that 26% share of the company should be given to people. Then there was discussion that not 26%, but 26% profit should be given. There were proposal that people should get at least equal to what states get, that is royalty. So all these discussions were happening during the deliberations for drafting Mines and Mineral Development and Regulations Bill between 2008 and 10 in the Ministry of Mines. Just to give you some idea why 26%, because under our company's law, if you give 26% share to anyone, that person becomes the owner of the company. So the motive as well as the emotion behind 26% was that basically people were saying that the owners of minerals are people and therefore they must have the majority stake in whatever happens in the mining areas. If you will remember, in 2010 there was a group of ministers constituted under our present president Shri Pranab Mukherjee, who was then finance minister, to consider the draft bill prepared by Ministry of Mines. And in 2011, GOM agreed that for major minerals, an amount equivalent to the royalty paid during the financial year, and for the coal and lignite, an amount equivalent to 26% of the profit after tax will go to the community. So I'm taking you back 4 years where a group of ministers had agreed to give an amount equal to royalty for major minerals, and for coal and lignite, 26% of the profit after tax to the community. This provision was included in the 2011 Mines and Mineral Development and Regulation Bill, which was placed in the Parliament. However, this bill it never passed. It was never placed in the Lok Sabha, and it lapsed in 2014 as the Parliament and the new government came. So this bill lapsed in 2014. So I wanted to give you some sense what happened before this government. There was this bill. This bill was available. When the new government came in 2015 January, they promulgated MMDR amendment ordinance, but they kept the profit sharing mechanism there. However, they reduced the amount that leaseholder had to pay to the community through District Mineral Foundation. So if you will remember, the bill that lapsed in 2014 had either royalty or 26% profit for coal and lignite. However, the January 2015 MMDR ordinance reduced this to 1/3 of the royalty, which had to be paid for respective minerals. However, there was a lot of discussions in the Parliament, and in March 2015, Parliament passed MMDR Amendment Act 2015, under which the term, and I think this is an operative term for all of us to understand, the term says that the mine lease or prospecting license cum mine lease holder has to pay to DMF, District Mineral Foundation, an amount not exceeding 1/3 of royalty for new mine leases granted on or after commencement of the act, and for the old lease an amount not exceeding the royalty. So there was a compromise that happened between January 2015 and March 2015, where for the old mine, an amount not exceeding the royalty was agreed to be paid to the District Mineral Foundation. However, and for the new mine, however, it was reduced to 1/3 of the royalty. Now we are in September. On 16th, the Pradhan Mantri Khanij Kshetra Kalyan Yojana has been launched as a welfare scheme for mining affected area and people living therein. But next day, Ministry of Mines has also notified amount that leaseholder has to pay to DMF for major minerals. Now we are quite disappointed because if you remember the bill that was passed in March 2015, it was said not exceeding 30% for 1/3 of royalty for new mines and equivalent to royalty for existing mines. However, the September 17, 2015 Mines and Mineral Contribution to District Mineral Foundation rules now has reduced this amount by 1/3, by 2/3. And therefore, for existing mine leaseholders, they are only to pay 10% of low royalty for lease granted on or after January 12, 2015, and for the new mines, sorry, it is 10%, and for the existing mines now it is 30% of royalty that is there. So I wanted to give this history to you because we have moved from 26% profit in 2014 to now 10 to 30% of the royalty. So there has been significant reduction over the years in terms of how much uh, benefit mining companies have to share with the local community. And this has to be kept in mind as we move ahead, because as we will have less and less money in District Mineral Foundation, uh, less and less welfare can be provided to the affected communities. So, and a lot of things that we would like to do to uplift the socio-economic status of people living in these mineral-rich areas will not be fulfilled because we will never have sufficient money. So this is a little background on discussion on the history of profit sharing with the communities that I wanted to give it to you. Now, let me come back to Pradhan Mantri Khanij Kshetra Kalyan Yojana, PM3KY. Now, as you know that DMF has been instituted under MMDR Amendment Act 2015. The MMDR Amendment Act 2015 very clearly says that DMF should be guided by provisions of PESA, Forest Rights Act, and provisions of Constitution guiding the scheduled areas. This is very clearly mentioned in the MMDR Amendment Act 2015. However, the responsibility of drafting and enacting DMF rules have been left to the states. And therefore, if states have a significant role to play in deciding what kind of district mineral foundation will come up in mineral rich districts, as well as how that money will be utilized. What PM3KY does is that it primarily provides guideline for the kind of DMF rules a state should enact. And there is a reason for this. Before PM3KY came, some of the states put out their draft DMF rules. For example, Rajasthan put out its rules, Orissa has put out its rules, and there was a lot of discussion in the central government that these rules were not drafted to suit uh, the vision of the district mineral foundation. So Rajasthan draft DMF rules, for example, wanted to use this money for everything and anything under the universe. And the Orissa rules, which has actually been enacted now, doesn't include local community in the decision making on where and how DMF money should be used. And therefore, PM3KY is primarily a guideline to guide states, give states a broad vision on the kind of DMF rules they should be enacting. And therefore, provisions of PM3KY, whatever broad provisions that the union government has given, is to be implemented by using DMF money as well as by DMF institutions. The objectives listed for PM3KY is as follows. The objective is to implement various development and welfare projects program in mining affected area. But these development and welfare program is to complement existing, and this word is very important, complementing the existing ongoing scheme projects of the state and central government. The second is to minimize, mitigate the adverse impact during and after mining on environment, health, and socio-economic status of people in the mining districts. And third, to ensure long-term sustainable livelihood for the affected people in the mining areas. And I think in objective, there are, as I said, there are three key points that we need to keep in mind. One, that we have to complement existing projects and schemes of state and central government. Complement. Point number two, that we have to minimize and mitigate the adverse impacts of mining. And third, that this money should also look at long-term sustainable livelihood. It should not be about using this money now and finishing it. This money, which will come from exploitations of minerals in these districts, has to be used for long-term sustainable livelihood of people. Now, how do we see the provisions, broad provisions that PM3KY has put out under the Yojana? I think let's discuss the positive aspects, because there are a lot of positive aspects which states should uh, consider while drafting their DMF rules. For example, the PM3KY has clearly defined what is a directly affected area, what is a indirectly affected area, who are affected people, affected communities. It is very important that states very clearly define these things under their respective DMF rules. Otherwise, the money can be spent anywhere and everywhere. And I think the positive aspect, therefore, of PM3KY is that it has a clear definition of where the money should be spent. The second important and positive thing of PM3KY is that it doesn't say that affected people are only those people who have occupational right over the land. In our Schedule 5 area and Schedule 6 area, we do know that large part of tribal communities don't have occupational rights. They don't have legal rights over their land. They have usufruct and traditional rights. And therefore, PM3KY recognizes that people who have usufruct and traditional rights over the land should also be identified as affected people, which is a very, very positive development. The other positive is involvement of Gram Sabha for identifying affected people, which is again a positive aspect of PM3KY. In case of schedule area, PM3KY says that the projects and schemes which will be funded through uh, uh, DMF, District Mineral Foundations, will have to get approval of the Gram Sabha, which is again a very, very positive signal. PM3KY has also identified priority area where the money can be used, and it says that at least 60% of the DMF money should be used for provisions like water supply, environment preservation, and pollution control. And we have difference of opinion on this issue, but I'm just going to list how they have defined priority areas as water supply, healthcare, education, sanitation, skill development, welfare of women and children. But they have also included in this environmental preservation and pollution control. I'll come back to this issue later on. But the positive part is they have defined who are affected people and therefore where the money should be spent. They have defined priority area and how much money should be spent. We can have difference of opinion on priority areas. We will have different ideas on this and also on the quantum of money that should be spent on priority areas. But I think it is a very good development that the union government has very clearly specified these issues. The other the other positive aspect is that they have looked at long-term sustainability and therefore has given a provision for an endowment fund, uh, which will be used for sustainable livelihood of communities once a mine is closed, and how that money should be and this once a mine is closed, this endowment fund money will be used in the future. It has also proposed healthcare reforms like group insurance scheme for mining affected people, which is a very positive sign. Capping of administrative funds at 5% of the DMF, which is again a very good administrative practice prescribed under PM3KY. And lastly, there are mechanism for transparency and accountability of DMF fund. For example, how audit should be done, how information should be disclosed, how community should be informed about the work being done through the DMF funds. Let's discuss the major problems and limitations of PM3KY. And I want to spend this time, some time here, because while states are drafting their DMF rules, they should take these things into consideration. One of the big problem we think is that if DMF money is going to be used for pollution control measures in the mining areas, there will be nothing left for the community. And we believe that the pollution control measures, pollution prevention is the responsibility of mining companies, and DMF money shouldn't be used for pollution control measures. So if we are keeping pollution control as one of the priority areas for DMF money, then it is almost like we are taking money from mining companies and we are giving them back. Now that shouldn't happen, and therefore we believe that for we need to exclude money for pollution control from DMF. These are responsibility of mining companies. Mining companies should make sure that pollution is controlled and prevented. It should not be the responsibility of community to give their share of money for pollution control. So that we think is a major problem right now in the way PM3KY has defined priority area and how the money should be spent. There are also loosely defined area on fund use. Uh, for example, how the various way indirectly non-priority areas have been defined, and 40% money has been given to non-priority area. As I said, it is up to the state governments. These are the broad guidelines of the union government, but the state government can decide that instead of 40%, it could be 20%. So we leave it to the states to actually tailor these for the benefit of people living in the state. But there are loose areas in which fund utilizations have been defined in PM3KY, because we believe that the way there is a huge potential for this money to be used for big ticket infrastructure projects like road, bridges, and railways. Uh, Even with reduction in uh, contribution by mining companies to 10% and 30% for the existing mine, still DMF will have close to 6,000 crore rupees every year, depending on existing mining. And on future mining, the money will increase. And therefore, it's a substantial amount of money. And our fear is if we don't define very clearly where this money should be used, it could be misused for big ticket infrastructure projects, which actually shouldn't be the responsibility of DMF. This is the money which taxpayers of India pay for. We pay tax because roads can be built, bridges can be built, and railways can be built. So DMF shouldn't be used for these kind of big ticket infrastructure projects. The other area where we think there is a problem is DMF has not included local community outside scheduled areas for approval of the plans and where the money should be spent. I think there is there there is confusion in the mind of the people that mining only happens in scheduled areas, which is not true. A significant amount of mining happens outside scheduled areas, and there also we have villages, we have poor people, we have local communities, and we need to make sure that they are also involved in the way DMF money is spent. So we have provision for scheduled areas, but in non-scheduled areas, there is no provision under PM3KY for involving the communities. We also believe that we need to bring in the provision of social audit. After all, DMF money will be used for socio-economic upliftment of people. Now, you can't have only financial audit, which largely focuses on whether the money was used properly or not, and it is a financial audit of the money. Whereas social audit will bring out the quality of money spent, whether the money was spent for improving the quality of lives of people or not, and whether the money was spent to benefit people or not. There can be project which is very good on paper, which is financially sound, but might not benefit people. And therefore, the crucial idea of Manrega, of social audit and social audit and involving people in where this money should be spent should come under the rules that the states are doing right now. Uh, the big problem we think that PM3KY has is an institutional design. Uh, I want to take you back uh, to the trust deed that Ministry of Mines had released few months back. If you remember, few months back, Ministry of Mines had released a model DMF trust deed in which it had broadly defined institutional structure for DMF. And in that, it had said that the DMF should be a trust, that it should have a managing committee, that it should have a governing body. It had also said that state can depute existing government officer to take up responsibility of the trust and other things. Now, if you look at PM3KY, it mentions essentially that the, the DMF should not hire anyone on permanent or temporary basis, and that it can only hire people or services on contractual basis. Now, the fact is we need a people-centric institution at the district level to run DMF. And we cannot wait for a state to depute its officers. And we also cannot run DMF on contractual services. So I think one of the big weakness both in the trust deed which Ministry of Mines came out few months back, and PM3KY is their recommendation on institutional design for DMF is going to create more confusion than give some positive suggestions. So we believe that states should design DMF in a way that there is provision to hire people, so that DMF can be run properly. In some of the districts might get about 100 crore rupees as part of DMF, and that 100 crore rupees cannot be spent if you don't have proper office and proper officers to implement those programs and schemes, and to make sure that people are involved. So therefore, this is one big area where I think states should take the lead and design institution for DMF which is workable. Both the suggestion of the trust deed put out by Ministry of Mine as well as PM3KY is not helpful as far as institutional design is concerned. So let me go to the last part of my presentation and discuss what should states do. And let me say that the first thing the state should do is to look at inclusive institutional structure and must build multi-stakeholder representation in various institutions. We agree with the trust deed given by Ministry of Mine that there should be a managing committee and governing council. But it is very important that both in managing committee and governing council, there is ample representation of the local community and affected people. We cannot have managing committee and governing council which is only dominated by bureaucracy and political dispensation. It is very important because we should develop DMF as a people-centric organization, and therefore both in governing council and managing committee, we should bring in people. Both the functions of managing committee and governing council should be clearly defined, very clearly defined. And affected people should have a clear role in deciding and planning how the fund should be insured so that their interests and benefits are served. So the most important thing is that the institutional structure that we should be designing for DMF should be inclusive, where local and affected people are properly represented and their interests and benefits are served. We think that the guideline given in PM3KY for identifying beneficiaries and affected people is good, and therefore states can take that, and if they want to improve on it, they should improve. But I think that guideline is good to go. That's a good set of guideline given in PM3KY on identifying the beneficiaries. PM3KY has specified broadly where the money should be spent, but I think states should look at it from their own perspective. We would very strongly recommend that pollution control and prevention shouldn't be part of priority expenditure. Some part of money, if the states wants to give from DMF fund, they can, but that should be very small amount of money. But it's very important to understand that PM3KY DMF is for the benefit of uplifting, is for the benefit of local community and uplifting the socio-economic status of those people affected by mining. And therefore, that should be the priority where the money should go. Money shouldn't be used for big infrastructure projects, as I said, as well as for pollution prevention from mining. This is something that miners should do on their own. Money should be used for socio-economic upliftment. It should be used for drinking water, for example, drinking water, electricity, maintenance of infrastructure, health services, education. We have come out with a draft DMF rules where all these things have been very clearly specified. At the end of the presentation, there is a link given for that publication. You should use that to flesh out how the money should be used and where the money should be used. And therefore, we would implore the states to develop the rules which is right. Uh, for example, that DMF should operate with a strict principle of transparency and accountability. There should be an independent provision for social audit. It is important that the states should bring in social audit component in their bill. There should be safeguard and penalties for non-compliance with payment of DMF by minors. Right now, this issue has not been discussed. We have to make sure that the minors do not default in paying money to the DMF. There should be a setup for grievance redressal in some form of ombudsman for addressing complaint of the community if the money is not being used properly. So that we should put in place. And states will now have to decide how much money the minor minerals will pay for DMF. The central government union government has come out with its 10% and 30% of royalty rule, but states will have to decide how much minor minerals will have to pay. We will say that the state should look at the vision of MMDR Amendment Act 2015 at least, and recommend that at least 1/3 of the royalty from minor minerals should go to DMF, at least 1/3. Uh, that would be our recommendation if we really want DMF to serve meaningfully in the mining affected areas. Let me end my presentation by saying that the central government has given a blueprint. The state government needs to improve on it appropriately and do it in a way that it serves the interests and interests of the local community who are affected by mining, and design an institution which has the best principles and practices of transparency and accountability, as well as by including local community in decision making process. So I'll finish my presentation. These are the two documentation documents that you can download. Of course, the first one is on PM3KY, our critique, our suggestion, from which this presentation was made. And lastly, and the most important is, you should look at the Model District Mineral Foundation Trust Rule 2015 that CSC has put out, where all our suggestions on how we can involve local community, how we should define affected area and affected people, and where the money should be used has been very clearly specified. So my presentation finishes here. I have few questions. Yeah.
Otherwise, this will be passed on to consumers and this will escalate the cost of building materials required for weaker section housing schemes.
Well, Rafi, that is not, I think it's a very good question that you are making. Will DMF increase the cost of minerals or not? I will answer this question in two ways. The first way is to say that there is a social and environmental cost of any activity. So far, mining in India was happening without paying the social and environmental cost, and therefore our minerals were cheap. And who made money out of these minerals? All the miners made huge amount of money by not paying social and environmental cost. Now, As a society, we have to now realize that without paying social and environmental costs, on one hand, we will have social problems as we have in mining and mineral rich districts, and we will have environmental problem again because miners are not going to clean up the environment. So as a society, we now have to agree to pay the social and environmental cost in the product and services that we are consuming. We cannot discount environment and social issues anymore. So we have to agree to pay more. That is point number one. But coming back to your point, I think this is not a big money to pay because 10% of royalty is equal to 1% of value of minerals. Our royalty rates on ad valorem on volume is only about 10% of the cost of mineral. So DMF will be equal to 1% of the value of mineral, the way the rates is there. Our suggestion was actually to increase it to 3 to 5% of the value of mineral. So at least 3 to 5% of the value of mineral should have gone to the local community. But now it is 1% for new mines and 3% for the existing mines. Now, I'm sure that every one of us will be more than happy to increase our mineral prices by 1% or 3% if we can eradicate poverty, reduce poverty in mineral rich areas. So from both perspectives, I think it is important for us as a society, one, that we need to pay for our environmental and social cost, and secondly, that the money that DMF is going to charge on mineral is not going to be too high for us to pay. So on both count, I think it is not going to be too big a price for us to pay for the kind of social and environmental development that will happen in mineral rich areas. So as there are no more, you can write to us, and yes, this video will be uploaded and you will have, but let me end by saying that please go through Model District Mineral Foundation Trust Rule 2015. It is going to give you all the answers that you need on how to use PM3KY. Okay, there is another question. And what is the question? Yeah, please. Sorry, I couldn't get the question. Let me just see the question. The the district. Can you increase the window size? The funds to be utilized for a person and areas affected, mining activities affects environment across the district. How the district fund shall be allocated? Okay. So in PM3KY, they have said there are two parts to where money should be spent. One is priority area and directly affected people, where 60% of money has to be has to be spent, and then there is 40% of the DMF money which can go to non-priority area and indirectly affected people. So you have four things to consider, and that states can decide how do they want to. You have directly affected people and directly affected area where the money should go, and then you have indirectly affected people and indirectly affected area. So the priority should be to give money to directly affected area and directly affected people because they will be the most affected by mining. Then lesser amount of money can go to indirectly affected area and indirectly affected people. So you are correct to say that uh, the impact of mining is on the whole district, but it is also true that some areas are more affected and some areas are less affected. And therefore, we will have to prioritize directly affected area and directly affected people. Under PM3KY, right now, 40% of the money can be spent in non-priority area, which I believe is indirectly affected people and indirectly affected areas.
Rafi Ahmed has continued with his debate here, so he's continuing here. He's asking you something. The mining, can you go through this maybe?
Please, I will. What is Rafi saying?
The mining leases licenses starting from here.
Granted was with due adherence to the provision MMDR, which specifies safety provisions conduct of mining operation. In fact, with the implementation of stipulated safety distances in consultation with Department of Mine Safety, Ministry of Labor, there will be least affected due to mining operation. Therefore, an independent agency shall be constituted with specific terms of reference to identify the affected people, so also the affected areas. I think this is a good suggestion. This, the suggestion right now is that uh, the Gram Sabha will identify, but in places where there is no Gram Sabha nearby, you will have to use some third party and independent agency to identify people. But in places where Gram Sabha is there, then Gram Sabha should be able to identify. But in places where Gram Sabha is not there, people are living far off from the mining areas. Independent agencies can be hired to identify affected people. Okay.
He's continuing with his debate here. So
Okay.
the spending of the DMF shall be prioritized for preventing development for long-lasting solutions. So I think he's just giving the same solutions as we
Okay.
have just
Sure.
told.
Sure. Sure. What?
That's it as of right now. Yeah. Maybe Rafi can write to us.
Yeah, Rafi can write to us, I think, and we can continue this discussion. But let me say thank you very much to all the participants, and that we should continue our discussion on DMF. From our side, we are going to put out all these material, and you will have access to this.
Yes.
All the users will have access to this, both the documents as well as the video. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.